It's all right, Chucky. Don't be scared.
What if I told you some of the most unforgettable shows from our childhood, series filled with mystery, cliffhangers, and characters we grew up with, were never given a real ending? 10 cartoons and TV classics that promised big finales, emotional payoffs, and answers we waited years for, only to vanish without closure. Cancellations, toy sales, studio politics, each series has a story darker and stranger than you remember. Remember to check the description for the link of the DVDs, hit like, and we would really appreciate a super thanks. Okay, now let's revisit the cartoons that should have an ending but never did.
Ready or not, here I come! I'll get it! Can I help you?
There's a moment in Wacko's Wish that feels like a throwaway joke when you're a kid, but as an adult, it hits like a punch in the chest. Wacko, always the silly, hungry middle sibling, casually mentions that he's been starving, really starving, and suddenly the goofy world of Animaniacs doesn't feel so goofy anymore. The movie throws the Warners into a cold, miserable version of Acme Falls, a fairy tale kingdom crushed by taxes and ruled by King Salazar. As a kid, you watch Wacko sigh about not eating and think, yeah, he loves snacks, but later you realize he wasn't trying to be funny, he was telling the truth. Wacko went to another town to work just to pay off for Dot's operation, only to have his only coin, a single penny, taken away. The humor fades, and what's left is a picture of real child poverty tucked inside a cartoon musical. That's the secret about Wacko's Wish. The closer you look, the darker it gets. A literal wishing star falls from the sky, and the entire kingdom races for it like their lives depended on it. And honestly, they do. Dot is sick, Wacko is exhausted, Yakko is desperately holding his family together, and the world around them is collapsing. There's even torture, executions, and a king trying to outsmart his own misery. And yet, the movie hides it all under the songs, slapstick, and that famous Warner charm. Did you ever notice that Dot's operation turns out to be nothing more than cosmetic surgery for a beauty mark? As a kid, you laugh, but as an adult, you suddenly realize it wasn't Dot who needed help. It was the world crushing them that needed fixing. And here's the twist most people missed. Wacko's wish for 2 hot pennies ends up saving the entire economy. The butcher buys from the baker buys from the grocer, everyone buys from everyone, and suddenly prosperity returns. A whole kingdom restored by a child's last hope. Did that ever make you wonder if the movie was quietly teaching kids about how poverty traps families? Or even hinting at how a real community rebuilds itself? And speaking of hidden meanings, did you know this was the last Animaniacs project before the 2020 revival? And it ends with one more spin of the wheel of morality? Just cheer up and never give up hope. A line that sounds silly as a kid, but sort of becomes a life mantra when you grow up. So, which detail about Wacko's Wish shocked you the most now that you're older?
It's a little shovel for gardening. All those flowers, she planted those. She used to love to come out here and play with you.
Every 90s kid remembers Rugrats as the show where babies had wild adventures, but Mother's Day was different. It didn't feel like an episode. It felt like a secret adults weren't supposed to talk about. Chucky Finister spends most of the day quietly wondering what Mother's Day even means for a kid who doesn't have a mom. And the episode lets that sadness sit there, soft and uncomfortable. The babies try to help. Spike the dog, Lil pretending to be his mom. It's cute on the surface, but underneath, you can feel that something is wrong. And when Chucky finds the box of his mother's belongings, a spade, pressed flowers, and a photo, the whole tone shifts. The music slows down, the colors soften, and suddenly, this isn't a cartoon anymore. It's grief. Most kids didn't know the behind-the-scenes truth. Nickelodeon originally refused to let writers say Chucky's mom was dead. They thought it was too scary. So for years, she was mentioned but never explained. Even the creators joked about how they weren't allowed to say what happened. It wasn't until later seasons, when new writers came in, that the studio finally agreed to let the episode be made at all. And when it aired, something rare happened. Parents watched it with their kids and cried. Chucky's mom's voice, played by Kim Cattrall, reads a poem she's wrote for him before dying from a terminal illness. It's soft, gentle, devastating. Suddenly, Angelica's shouting, Phil and Lil's jokes, Tommy's optimism, all of it fades into a single idea. Chucky's mom loved him so much, she wrote a goodbye letter he wouldn't read until years after she was gone. And did you notice this? The show never once dramatizes her sickness. There are no hospital scenes, no machines beeping, no trauma shown. The memory we get is her playing with Chucky in their garden, healthy, smiling, alive. Because that's how Chucky remembers her. And that's how the show chooses to honor her. Rugrats, one of the most chaotic cartoons ever made, paused the noise to teach kids about loss gently, truthfully, and bravely.
Daddy, what's going on?
I'm sorry I had to see this, Miss Beaumont.
Mask of the Phantasm is one of the movies that felt mysterious as a kid. But when you rewatch it as an adult, the entire story rearranges itself. Suddenly, it's not about Batman fighting a masked vigilante. It's about a woman whose entire life was destroyed in a single moment. Andrea Beaumont isn't just Bruce Wayne's lost love. She's a child who came home from the store and found her father murdered on the living room floor. The bomb wasn't meant for her, but she walks straight into the aftermath. That trauma becomes the root of everything. Her heartbreak, her disappearance, her transformation into the phantasm. Every piece of her story is shaped by that one silent, horrifying scene she couldn't escape from. And here's the detail that always gets overlooked. The hitman who kills her father is the man who becomes the Joker. Kids watching the film saw a spooky mobster. Adults watching later realize it's Jack Napier silently passing Andrea in the hallway while she unknowingly walks toward her father's corpse. The movie doesn't exaggerate the moment. It doesn't add dramatic music or slow motion. It lets the horror speak for itself. And then the story shifts into something even more tragic. While Bruce struggles with the weight of becoming Batman, Andrea struggles with the weight of becoming something else entirely. Not a hero, not a villain, something in between. The movie even tricks you with its ending. The phantasm disappears in a cloud of smoke with the Joker. The fairground explodes. The Batman assumes she died. Alfred comfortingly says Bruce couldn't have saved her from her own vengeance. But then, quietly, almost hidden, the film reveals Andrea alive, standing alone on the deck of a ship, telling a stranger she prefers to be alone. A superhero movie ending with emptiness instead of triumph. Did you ever notice how unsettling that is? A woman who lost her father, her partner, her future, and chose isolation over healing.
Remember, Arnold, always wash your berries before you eat them. And fly toward the sun.
If Rugrats made childhood feel emotional and Batman made it feel tragic, Hey Arnold made it feel eerie. And nothing was more haunting than the legend of the Pigeon Man. Kids whispered stories about him like he was a ghost living above the city. But when Arnold actually meets him, he's not a monster. He's a gentle, lonely man named Vincent who once had friends, went to school, and took care of birds the way other people care for family. As a kid, you know his rooftop home covered in feathers and birdseed is just weird. As an adult, you suddenly see the truth. He lives among pigeons because people rejected him. There's a softness hiding beneath the episode's urban legend tone. Vincent and Arnold bond over pizza and stories of childhood. That alone breaks the myth. Yet, the show doesn't let the comfort last. A group of boys destroy Vincent's sanctuary out of pure thoughtlessness and cruelty. Not hatred, not revenge, just boredom. They don't realize they're wrecking the only place that ever felt safe for him. And when Vincent returns and sees the ruins, something shifts. He doesn't get angry. He gets sad. Quietly, heartbreakingly sad. He tells Arnold that sometimes people can't be trusted, but Arnold proved some people can. And then he leaves. Here's the moment that unsettles every adult viewer. Vincent straps himself to his pigeons and rises into the sky, drifting off into the sunset. As kids, we accepted it. As adults, we ask questions Arnold was too young to wonder. Did he jump? Did Did he fly, or did he choose to disappear because the world hurt too much? The show leaves it open on purpose, and that ambiguity is what gives the story its staying power. Later on, the Jungle movie reveals he traveled the world with his birds, even living near Notre Dame, sending Arnold a message of gratitude. But the original episode still carries that eerie ache, a man lifted into the sky by the only creatures that never judged him.
I'm sending you back to Oz in pieces. Wolverine, pull back!
For kids in the 90s, Morph was the funny shapeshifter who cracked jokes even in danger. But then came the Sentinel attack. A blast fires toward Wolverine, Morph shoves him out of the way, and in seconds, he's gone. No dramatic speech, no final moment of heroism, just a scream, a flash of light, and silence. The X-Men gather around the site realizing they've lost someone. As kids, many of us were shocked the cartoon actually killed a character. As adults, we noticed something else. The show treats Morph's death with real grief. Logan, the toughest mutant in the team, breaks down over losing the only person who made him laugh. What most viewers didn't notice is how much darker Morph's story gets after that. Sinister secretly recovers the body, revives him, and rewires his mind, turning him into a weapon against the people he once loved. His jokes turn spiteful, his smile twisted by trauma and manipulation. Even after the X-Men rescue him, he isn't okay. He freezes around Sentinel. He panics. He leaves the team because healing from psychological damage takes time, something cartoons almost never explored back then. And there's an unsettling irony built into his character, a shapeshifter who can become anyone, but no longer knows who he is. Even later in X-Men 97, when he has rejoined the team and matured, he still transforms into other people when emotions overwhelm him. Sometimes even into Jean, just to confess feelings he's too scared to express as himself. For a character introduced as comic relief, Morph becomes one of the most quietly tragic figures in the X-Men universe. A mutant broken by death, revived through science, and forced to rebuild a sense of self, piece by piece. There was something eerily quiet about the moment kids first realized cartoons could hurt. And in Digimon Adventure, that lesson came wrapped in a tattered cloak and glowing eyes. Wizardmon wasn't meant to be a hero. He was a wandering loner, drifting through the digital world with no purpose until Gatomon saved him from collapsing. That tiny act of kindness became the spark that changed everything. Most kids never noticed it back then, but Wizardmon's loyalty wasn't duty, it was gratitude. The kind that forms a bond stronger than Digivolution itself. As Myotismon seized control of Odaiba, Wizardmon hid in plain sight, pretending to serve the villain while secretly helping Carrie awaken her crest of light. But here's the part few remember. Wizardmon knew he couldn't win. His staff was broken, his energy was drained, and he'd already survived one drowning. And yet, when Myotismon fired the Grizzly Wing, an attack meant to erase Carrie and Gatomon forever, Wizardmon stepped in. No hesitation, no fear, just that quiet, heartbreaking line about his life finally having meaning. Kids didn't just watch a Digimon fade away, they watched a friend say goodbye. Before we move on, did Wizardmon's sacrifice hit you harder than any other Digimon moment? Or was it another loss that truly messed you up? Tell me below, because the next moment is somehow even lonelier.
How? Why?
Because the world needs a Batman. Not that I always thought so much.
If Wizardmon showed us what it means to die for someone, Bruce Wayne showed us what it means to live with everything you've lost. Epilogue wasn't just an episode. It was a slow, painful echo of the Batman mythos collapsing inward. We see Bruce in his final years, not as the Dark Knight, but as a man surrounded only by shadows he created. The Batcave feels colder, bigger, almost angry at him for outliving everyone he loved. Kids didn't catch it, but adults later realized just how tragic this version of Bruce really was. Then came the reveal that made every viewer pause. Terry McGinnis wasn't a random successor. He was Bruce's genetic son. Amanda Waller, in one of DC's darkest moral experiments, engineered fate itself. Imagine growing up thinking Batman chose you, only to learn someone else wrote your destiny. Yet the most unsettling part wasn't the science. It was Bruce finally caring again, quietly, awkwardly, almost afraid to show it. When Terry helps him take his medicine, it doesn't feel heroic, it feels human. Batman didn't die here. He simply got old, and somehow that was scarier. Some endings feel like goodbyes. This one felt like a promise. The Iron Giant lulled kids into believing they were watching a simple sci-fi adventure, but beneath the Cold War paranoia and giant robot chaos was a story about choosing who you want to be. The giant wasn't born a hero, he was built as a weapon. But Hogarth's comics planted something new in him, something that made his glowing eyes soften every time he whispered the name Superman. Most viewers forgot just how terrifying the ending really was. A nuclear missile, panicked military, a town seconds from vaporization, and then the giant. His metal battered, memories glitching, learning what sacrifice truly means. That final moment, him rising into the sky, smiling softly, whispering, Superman, wasn't just heroic. It was heartbreaking because it felt real. A machine choosing mercy over programming. A friend choosing death over fear. But here's the secret twist kids didn't see. He wasn't gone. That lonely little jaw screw wiggling toward Iceland hinted that heroes don't end. They rebuild. They try again.
Go get him, Butterfree! The perfect mate for you's gotta be out there somewhere!
If the Iron Giant showed us noble sacrifice, Bye Bye Butterfree showed us the pain of letting someone go. Not because they're dying, but because they're choosing a life without you. And for a whole generation, that hurt even more. Ash's first Pokemon wasn't strong, flashy, or rare. It was Butterfree. The shy little caterpie that believed in him before he believed in himself. Kids were cheering the moment it evolved, but no one was ready for the quiet heartbreak waiting on that cliffside. Butterfree dances awkwardly to impress the pink Butterfree, only to be rejected so harshly it almost feels cruel. It's the first moment many kids ever saw a character face emotional failure, not a lost battle, but a broken heart. And just when Butterfree finally proves itself, rescuing the entire flock from Team Rocket, the hardest moment hits. The release. Ash smiles, tells Butterfree to follow its dream. But the second that Pokeball opens, his voice cracks. The music slows. The sky turns soft and empty. And when Butterfree flies away without looking back, that was the knife twist. Here's something fans rarely talk about. Butterfree was the very first Pokemon Ash ever let go, and the first Pokemon many kids ever cried for.
It's this one!
Some movie scenes stay with you. This one lived in kids' nightmares. Pokemon, the first movie, promised battles, clones, Mew versus Mewtwo, but no one expected a moment where the main character, a literal 10-year-old, would die on screen. Ash throwing himself between Mew and Mewtwo's psychic blast wasn't heroic, it was desperate. And when his body hit the floor, rigid and gray, the theater went silent in a way no cartoon had ever managed before. Pikachu trying to shock him awake wasn't played for comedy, it was agony. You can almost hear the animators deciding, yes, let this hurt. And when Pikachu finally drops to its knees and cries, that single tear launched 1,000 childhood traumas. The secret tragedy behind the scene is something most fans didn't know. Ash's petrification wasn't magic, it was Mewtwo's trauma. His entire existence had been defined by death. Amber 2, the Pokemon clones, the failed experiments. Watching Ash fall the same way they did broke him. The tears that revived Ash weren't a spell. They were a choice to stop repeating the cycle of pain he'd been born into.
My name's Brock.
I'm Dawn.
And I'm Ash. This is my partner, Pikachu.
And those were the 10 series that left us hanging. Worlds we loved, characters who never reached their final moment, and the stories that still sit unfinished in the back of our minds. Some were canceled too early, some fell victim to networks, and others were simply ahead of their time. If you want to relive them yourself, grab your old DVDs or check the description for the link for the DVDs here. Hit like and click super thanks and keep these forgotten worlds alive. Drop a comment telling us which unfinished series hurt you the most. And I'll see you next time on the next deep dive right here on Backstage Tales.